Okay, so we are looking at graphing and analyzing polynomial functions. So you can do the warm-up, and then we're going to jump down to general steps to do all the graph things. Find the roots, or x-intercepts, by setting the problem equal to 0. It talks about, these are the ways we've talked about learning. We've done factoring. Rational root is like our synthetic division, and if we can't factor, we always use quadratic formula. So I'll write that here. X equals negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So if you have to go use quadratic formula, you can look back there for the formula. Last class we practiced not only we solved, I'll highlight here, we solved for x using just different methods. We also did this one where I said we're going to use this later to find the minimum and maximum. So we had to set them both equal to 0. So today, the first thing is to set the problem equal to 0 to find the roots. And then the second thing we're going to do is set the derivative equal to 0, and that's going to find your maximum minimum. So you take the derivative, set it equal to 0, and then this will be what's new today from what we did last time, is to plug the x values into the original function to find the y part. So you have a maximum and minimum point. I would use a number line with the x values to organize the information for increasing and decreasing. So let's look at the next page and look at the graphs. To start with, if we take the original problem and I'm going to set it equal to 0. So it looks like we could take out a 3 and an x squared. So look for GCFs. If you can take anything out, you're left with x squared minus 2. If you set each of those equal to 0, you get 3x squared equals 0, and x squared minus 2 equals 0. So the first one, if you divide by 3, and then you get x equals 0. If you square root this one, we get x squared equals 2. And when you square root 2, you're going to get positive or negative 1.4. So some of you guys might be wondering, it says it's a 4th degree, yet we only have 3 answers. But remember, this x squared here means it's going to hit the 0. It's like a multiplicity of 2 we talked about. Okay, so when we look at this, the second step is to find the derivative. So now I'm going to find this. So bring down the 4, you get 12x to the third minus 12x. If we look to see if we have anything in common on this one, they both have a 12x that we can take out. That would be our GCF. 12x, we would be left with x squared minus 1. Remember, we're going to set that equal to 0. So 12x equals 0, and x squared minus 1 equals 0. Let's just go back in. So x equals 0, if you get x squared equals 1, x equals plus and minus 1 when you square root 1. So again, this x equals 0 is moving on. So if we go to graph the points, well, let's go ahead and find those minimum points. If you plug in 0 to the original problem would look like 3 times 0 to the 4th minus 6 times 0 squared. Well, 0 and 0 just comes out to 0. So this 0, 0 is going to be a minimum or maximum. If you plug in 1, so let's see, if you plug in 1, that ends up 3 minus 6, which is negative 3. So that point would be 1, negative 3. And to save a little bit of time on the video, I'm just going to say if I plug in negative 1 into that formula, I got negative 3. So I'm going to put my zeros. Here's 1, we're at 1.4, and negative and positive 1.4. And I know, let's put 1, negative 3, and negative 1, negative 3. Now you have to remember all the things we had talked about. If it's a fourth root, and behavior goes the same direction. If it is positive, it's both are going to end going up. So this is the graph that we're looking. So fourth root means it's going to both go, it's positive, so both go up. We had the 0 at the multiplicity of 2, so it bounced back. The 1.4 and the negative 1.4 just hit it once. So this would be our graph, a great place to go. Check your work. Just go to your Desmos graphing calculator, just to make sure that you are on the right track as you're practicing these. So as you can see, if you look down here, we have negative 1.4, positive 1.4. We had a minimum point of negative 1, 3, negative 3, and 1, negative 3. So as we go back, and 0, 0, obviously. So our domain left to right, this comes from previous chapters, but that would be negative infinity to infinity. The range is your lowest. Your lowest point we had was negative 3 to infinity. This is your lowest or minimum. Let me rewrite that. Here, as it approaches negative infinity, your low limit. As it goes to the left, it's going to infinity. As it goes to the right, it goes to infinity. So that's your x values and your y values. If remember from a couple days ago, I guess we circled our minimums. So our minimum values were negative 1, negative 3, and positive 1, negative 3. Our max was 0, 0. Increase and decrease. So you have to realize you're reading the graph from left to right. This way is going down and back up, down and back up. So as far as increasing goes, that would be from negative 1 until, negative 1.4. No. Negative 1 to 0. And then union from 1 to infinity. Kind of ran out of room there. Decreases when it's going down from negative infinity to negative 1. And then again at 0, it's going to go down from 0 to 1. x-intercepts. I'm just going to list them out. Those are the numbers we found. And our y-intercept in this picture would be 0, 0. If you don't have a y-intercept, like it doesn't come out exactly at a point, you can always just plug in 0 to the original one to figure that out. Okay?